Association of Canada, a charitable NGO dedicated to informing Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO. Thoughts about NATO do not usually occur to Canadians on a daily basis, but the peace, prosperity, and security that NATO provides are integral to our way of life. The principle that an attack upon one is an attack upon all is the foundation of NATO and maintains peace through strength, perhaps the greatest lesson of the death and destruction of the Second World War. This collective defense draws its strength through unity and is based on the premise that division is the main weakness. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with His Excellency Martin Tlapa, Ambassador of the Czech Republic to Canada, who will be introduced shortly. This discussion will allow Canadians to hear about the importance of NATO to the Czech Republic, the strong relationship between our two countries, and the value of friendship. We hope you will join us and continue to engage with the NATO Association of Canada as part of our community online via Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter. I also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be part of future events as well. And now I'm pleased to hand off to our three moderators, Tim, Sophia, and Devani. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter, for that kind introduction. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our diplomatic speaker series exploring Canada's relations with its NATO allies and partners in a constantly evolving global security environment. So my name is Tim Crincoli, and I'm an engagement coordinator with the NATO Association of Canada.
My name is Sophia Andrushak, and I'm a junior research fellow with the NATO Association of Canada.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Avani Singh, and I'm the team lead with the engagement team at the NATO Association of Canada.
Okay, lovely. So before we get started, I'd like to just give a brief history of the Czech Republic's role and participation in NATO, as I think that's always a nice way to start off these sessions. So since the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, the Czech Republic has pursued a deliberate shift towards Euro-Atlantic security and defense. And on the 16th of January 1994, the Czech Republic joined the Partnership for Peace program, marking its first concrete step towards deeper cooperation with NATO and symbolizing a strategic reorientation. Throughout the 1990s, the Czech Republic undertook substantial political, military, and institutional reforms to align itself with NATO standards, and its efforts culminated in an invitation to the alliance on the 12th of March 1999. The Czech Republic, together with Poland and Hungary, became one of the first former Eastern Bloc countries to gain full NATO membership. And after accession, the Czech Republic embedded itself into NATO structures and operations. It committed to collective defense under Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty and began participating in alliance missions and exercises. Over the years, Czech forces have contributed significantly to NATO deployments and helped advance the alliance's capacity to respond to emerging security challenges in Europe and beyond. As of 2024, marking 25 years since the membership, Czech leaders and NATO officials reaffirmed that the alliance remains a cornerstone of the country's security, sovereignty, and democratic development. For a Canadian audience, understanding the Czech Republic's trajectory and role in NATO strengthens our shared values and opportunities for collaboration. The Czech Republic's membership helps extend collective security across Central Europe, contributes to regional stability, and underlines how shared democratic and security values unite countries from Prague to Ottawa. And quickly to introduce our speaker today, we're lucky enough to be joined by His Excellency Martin Tlapa, and he has served as an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the Czech Republic to Canada since October 2023. The ambassador is a seasoned diplomat and expert in international economic relations. He has held senior leadership roles across the Czech government, including as deputy minister at both the Ministry of Industry and Trade and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where he oversaw EU affairs, trade policy, economic diplomacy, and international development cooperation. The ambassador previously served at the Czech Embassy in Canada as Secretary for Commercial and Economic Affairs and has represented the Czech Republic at high-level forums of the WTO and the OECD. He played a key role in shaping national strategies on export promotion, competitiveness, and relations with Africa and the Indo-Pacific. He holds an MBA from Sheffield Hallam University and the Czech Technical University and has authored articles and books on diplomacy and foreign economic policy. And born in Prague, he is married with 2 children, which is always lovely to hear. So, Ambassador, we invite you to begin your opening remarks before we can proceed to the moderated questions.
Okay. I would like to thank you very much for inviting me for the NATO Association of Canada Diplomatic Speaker Series. Appreciate very much. It's a great initiative, and I will be very happy to discuss the importance of the security. It's absolutely timing for such a discussion because what we are facing is unprecedented, and I will be happy to have a dialogue with you and taking questions because you know, the security and defense is something which is really on the top of the agenda. Maybe it was not so urgent a couple of years ago, but now we are facing the same threat. So cooperation Canada, Czech Republic in this area is essential, and that is one of the important tasks of the mission of the Czech Republic in Canada as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador, for that introduction and for the opening remarks. We'll begin the moderated discussion. So for this, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Sophia.
Thank you so much. So our first question is on the Czech Republic's NATO accession. And the question is, what effects has the accession of the Czech Republic to NATO had for the transformation of the Czech Republic and for its democracy?
Thank you for this question. I think that coming back to your question, before I will answer exactly why NATO was so important, let me underline the importance of the defense security and military capacity of the country to be independent. Because if you look on the history of my country, Czechoslovakia was born in 1918, at the end of the First World War. And one of the important conditions for establishing independent Czechoslovakia was the fact that 70,000 soldiers from the Czechoslovakia legions were fighting in the First World War, supporting the constituency independence of the Czech Republic. And the same story we will find in Second World War, when the Czechoslovakia was occupied by the Nazis. Many Czech soldiers were fighting against the Nazis in the Second World War. And it was an important part of speeding up the process of establishing Czechoslovakia in 1945 as well. So the security and military and defense are essential for the sovereignty and independence of the country. In 1999, I think it was a few years after the Velvet Revolution, Czechoslovakia became independent and moved from socialism to the capitalism and building a free market economy. It was essential for the values, saving the values of the country to be in NATO because it was important safeguards for us, values of the organization. Big achievement was done by with the assistance of U.S. Secretary of State, Madame Madeleine Albright, by the way, with the Czech origin at the time. So it was quite essential for that, and it was very important. Not so many people know that we joined NATO in 1999, 5 years before we entered European Union. So in this aspect, the security sometimes seems to be even more important than to be in economic club. This is essential part of that. So that's why this is so important. And it was an important open window opportunity for the newborn freedoms countries in the Central Europe to be a part of the Western society.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Shifting a little bit to focus on NATO strategy, role, and cooperation, the Czech Republic met the 2% of GDP defense spending pledge in 2024, and has signaled plans to move towards 3% by 2030. What are the Czech Republic's key priorities for the additional resources, and what areas are the most important to be scaled up? For example, capabilities, personnel, modernization, or perhaps stockpiles?
Yeah. First, let me say that it's not easy discussion for the government to convince people that it's important to invest into the security, because we lived many years in the feeling or atmosphere that defense is not so important as other things, which are economic security for the people, social standards, prices, and others. So this is important for the government to explain why this is so important. I think we are facing the same tasks, both in Canada and the Czech Republic, that this is something essential for keeping independence and sovereignty of the country. So this is quite important to convince the people, to communicate with them openly about the threats and how the government should serve for the next generation security when we will invest into the defense. So that's the first point. Second, that's we move to 2%, as you mentioned, in 2024, and the government accept the targets about 3% 2030, and based on the NATO meetings, also the long-term aim target about 5%, 1.5% GDP for investment, 3.5 for defense. So that's going into the budget sheets, I would say, of the governments, where to invest the money and how to invest. One thing is the numbers. The second one is real defense equipment and resistancy and activities. So that's why the Czech government agreed on the Armed Force Development Conception 2035. And they are facing, by the way, new challenges we are now facing now, for example, anti-drone defense systems. And also what is quite important is investing into recruiting new soldiers to the army. This is quite important things to have a stability, to give them a good conditions for taking a job in the army, for the families to be able to have a good life and background for the living. So this is what we are trying to do, invest into the real equipment, both in people and also in the equipment. And new challenges are here. We can invest into digitalization or many things, common system, for example. The same is for the equipment. And by the way, the things happening now in Ukraine and how the conflict is managed is leading to us to think about the new threats we are facing, like anti-drone defense system.
Thank you very much for that answer. Before we get into the next question, I think it's a good time to remind everyone, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the ambassador, please put them in the chat and we'll ask them in the live Q&A section. So moving on to our next question, it continues on the topic of NATO strategy, role, and cooperation, and it's that NATO continues to emphasize deterrence on the alliance's eastern flank. So what approach is the Czech Republic taking to foster both security, stability, and also cooperation amongst NATO allies in the Baltics and Central Europe? So these could be things like forces, pre-positioning exercises, or even logistics.
Yeah. You know, the eastern flank and the participation there is quite important. It's something like in Canada, Arctic security, because we are facing the conflicts in the few kilometers far from the Czech Republic, and to have security on this border is quite essential. I would appreciate very much the role what Canada is doing there, because you are very active in this part of the conflict, and you are working with the NATO alliances there in this part of the world, and I think that it is important to convince on the government on the level of the NATO what will be the role of each and every country in securing these things. So we should be specialized on the different activities, but the one leadership under NATO umbrella on the eastern flank is quite important for that. And once again, I think it's very important that we are working together as and with Canada on this issue as well.
To focus more on your support to Ukraine, the Czech-led ammunition initiative has been a major element of Prague's support to Ukraine. How does the initiative complement NATO's support for Ukraine, and what are the plans for sustaining munitions deliveries?
Yeah, let me say a few numbers. Yeah, it's 1.7 million rounds of all large calibers have been already delivered to Ukraine so far. And this ammunition initiative in total is more than 1.8 million rounds with the end of this year. So it's quite important thing to really help immediately, quickly, the needs which are demanded. We very highly appreciate Canada, because Canada contributed to the initiative more than 353 million Canadian dollars, and commitment now for the next year is about 30 million dollars, 25 and 53 and 24 was. So we are continuing in this initiative just to help Ukraine in secure the security and supply mainly the large ammunition which is demanded in this conflict. And we are very happy that the number of the countries which is involved in this initiative is enlarging, and Canada is an important player on that. What is very important also to cooperate with the NATO structure, to find the programs which can have a synergy with the ammunition initiative, and to be a part of one NATO strategy for helping building the security of the NATO and in the Ukraine. What is important also, and this is what is one of the priorities for the Czech Republic, is help to build own building defense capacity in Ukraine. I think that there will be a lot of programs, both from the Canada and the Czech Republic, helping to build the capacity equipment in Ukraine's sale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Continuing on this topic, several NATO allies have expressed concern about industrial base capacity for artillery rounds. What steps is the Czech Republic taking bilaterally or within NATO to strengthen EU and NATO ammunition production and stockpiles?
As we discussed at the beginning, I think that you will find in the history of Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic strong defense and military capacity. So we are lucky to have capacity to quickly extend the production of the important thing which are for the security. Just a few examples. STV Group is a company in the Czechoslovakia and Czech Republic now, which is the main producer of artillery shells. We have a big company, Excalibur, which is building a large caliber ammunition facility. And also Explosia is working on the production of for the strategic area for the national defense. So this is what we are trying to do. What the government is trying to help is to help in make investment and capacity more easy for the businesses. It's about bureaucracy, cutting red tape. In long term, we'll also find we have to find also the synergy between the green policy and defense policy, because the process of approval of the new facility taking time. And also it's important to convince the banks for financing defense capacities which are being built in the Czech Republic.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So we have another series of questions related to procurement, capability modernization, and also industrial policy. So the Czech armed forces are modernizing, as can be seen through tank and vehicle acquisitions, as well as air defense modernization. So we were wondering how these purchases fit into a broader industrial and interoperability strategy with NATO partners.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, and this is we have a very similar discussion as in Canada, how to speed up the process of acquisition, how to invite the private business to be involved in defense needs and demands, how to build a cooperation between the industry and defense, and how banks should be involved in quick financing. And the important part within the NATO, for example, is to have a mutual recognition system. When one country will buy the equipment for the military, it should be applicable also for the other NATO states, yeah, to speed up the process of the recognition of the quality and the demands and the certification process, because it's taking time. So that's basically the strategy, which is very similar on both sides, both in Canada and the Czech Republic, how to build the capacity. Just if I will take one example, or a few examples, I think that what we are investing is, for example, in fighting vehicles, infant fighting vehicles CV90. We are also modernizing through acquisition from our partners in Leopard main battle tanks, Leopard, and also from other countries, as we are discussing about the equipment for the operational system and artificial intelligence, which will be used by the Army. And with the US, we have a discussion and sign a deal about F-35, which will come to the equipment of the Czech Army by 2035.
Thank you. Building on that, what role do Czech defense companies play in NATO supply chains? And how is the government incentivizing domestic capacity, for instance, R&D, exports, partnerships? And are there any potential collaborations with Canada in defense modernization?
Yeah, I think it's important that, as I mentioned in previous question, it's important to remove the wall between the defense and army and between the businesses and army. This should be now one big project and cooperation and synergy between the businesses and the army needs. So what is building the environment for discussing what are the priorities, how the capacity of the industry should be effectively invest into the defense sector is the one important discussion that we have in the Czech Republic. So this is a part of building a supply chain in the Czech Republic. And of course, the value added with the deliveries of final products are quite essential for the whole discussion. So we have some incentives, domestic program, which is governed by the Czech government, mainly the Ministry of Defense of the Czech Republic. We are also helping to find the business opportunities through economic diplomacy, foreign markets, business missions, industrial cooperation policy, also looking how to speed up the process of acquisition of the projects. The government is trying to invest also through research and development program. It's about 3 national programs which are announced by the Czech government. And also what is very important is the state financial institution are expanding the local capabilities through investing guarantees and money for the building the capacities of the Czech Republic. And the last very important item is also the International Research and Development Program. And European Defense Fund can be used for some projects on that area, and also high visibility projects which are financed by NATO. So this is I would say, the ecosystem for research and development cooperation within the NATO and the Czech Republic, and to find a synergy among all the players is quite important for the speeding up the process of the whole equipment on that.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We'd like to shift the focus over a little bit onto cyber hybrid threats and resilience. And to start us off, I'd like to begin with, how is the Czech Republic government prioritizing cyber defense and resilience in the context of NATO's evolving concepts of deterrence and collective defense?
It's a alarming challenge we are facing now in the cyber security and the hybrid threats. And so that's the first is understand how important the topic is for the national security. And that's why our national cybersecurity strategy, which was approved by the government, is focusing about building the capacities, including the response for the threats, attribution. Example of that should be passive cyber defense, while also using the NATO platforms for that. So that's quite important to understand this topic. And within our EU membership, we are also investing into building a common cybersecurity alliance capacities for facing the challenge, because this is a huge topic which is affecting not one country, but also all the family EU and NATO members. So this is quite important part of our exercise. And what is important is to understand the core of the threats, how they are done, by whom. Also, sometimes cybersecurity is linked to build a new legislation, which will be allowing to speed up the process of the response of the threats, and also educating the players in the economic sphere, for example, non-governmental organization, about the threats which can be found in the cybersecurity system.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. To follow up on the hybrid threats topic, or the hybrid threats, correct? That they blurred the civilian and the military domains. We were wondering what measures that Prague has taken to protect, more specifically, critical infrastructure or energy systems, and additionally, information spaces.
Yeah, exactly. This is perfectly following the question before, because the cooperation between the government and the private sector, academia, and civil society, it's quite important for that. So, and maybe one illustration for the threats is the beginning of discussion in the Czech Republic. In 2017, the government decided to create a national cyber and information security agency, which is the primary essential authority in the Czech Republic, which is focusing on the cybersecurity. And the aim of the institution is not only to, let's say, look what's happening, but also make a very proactive policy to explain the threats and the technologies which can threat the security for the both private and government bodies and across the whole society. So that's a quite important rule, and this is maybe one concrete answer about that. Of course, on European level, we are discussing a so-called new Cybersecurity Act, which is upgrading the policy on the common approach of EU places. And also, we have some development program, by the way, at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. We call it CyberWAC, which is helping to partners in the world understand the threats through cybersecurity. And it's focusing on the legislation, understanding the threats, legislation, and also active promotion of the solutions by the companies on both sides and advisory. So that's a proactive approach, by the way, very successful in Latin America. And we are trying to export also the approach to our countries, which are partners for the projects. And also we have a foreign direct investment screening mechanism, quite important aspect of the policy, looking who is investing into the Czech Republic. And we have sensitive sectors in which we would like to really see that the investment coming to the Czech Republic are safe for the national security.
Thank you for your answer. Moving on to regional security, how does the Czech Republic view the security situation in Central and Eastern Europe beyond Ukraine, for instance, the Black Sea region and the Baltic region, and what common priorities does it pursue with regional NATO partners?
Yeah, as we mentioned, one point is quite why it's alarming, I would say, and important because we have some experience being occupied in the history, and location in Central Europe is invitation for all wars happening in Europe, going to the west to the east, from the north to the south, going through the Central Europe. So we are quite sensitive on the security issue. And unfortunately, we see the plans of Russia and Russian leadership this time is more reflecting or more referring to the split of the Europe as was done after the Second War, when the eastern part was influenced by the Soviet Union. And this is something which definitely is against the interests of the people living in the Czech Republic. So that's the threat we are facing in our hearts, and this is important for building the capacity to be able to answer these threats. So that's why the war and the occupation of Ukraine by Russians, and also the threats we feel is from Baltic countries, are something which is alarming many people in the Czech Republic. And that's why the cooperation is important within the NATO, and partnership and Eastern Flank is quite important thing. And once again, thanks very much for the cooperation on Canadian side on that. So that's one point. The second important part when talking about the European security is, for example, the Western Balkans. And to have Western Balkans secure in the long term means, from other aspects, also to have a EU membership option for the people living in Western Balkans, to be very close with the partners in Europe. So that's why the Czech Republic is helping for preparation of the Balkan countries which are ready and willing to join EU to be future members. Not easy discussion about enlargement of EU, of course, but we feel that this is one important message we can share with our Western partners. When you would like to be safe in the future, you have to fill the NATO and EU standards, and in EU membership means that you will be ready to be part of the family, and we are helping them to achieve this dream.
Thank you, Ambassador. In light of the recent and frequent violations from Russia in NATO allies' airspace, what is the Czech Republic's position when it comes to a NATO response and potential deterrence mechanisms, for example, air defense modernization?
Yeah, that's something which is the reality in Europe. Yeah, so Russia is testing how we can resolve the new threats and provocation coming to Baltic countries, to Poland, and other places in the Europe. So we need to deal with such irritants, and I think that these accidents are quite essential for the security. And so what is important to understand, one thing is that technically how to understand how to respond proactively these threats. Anti-drone system, for example, built in eastern part of NATO. Also try to understand that the threats should be proactively faced by better cooperation among the EU and NATO member states on that. And also it's important on diplomatic and political level to share the urgency of such a policy, because we would like to live in Europe in freedom and peace, and to build a capacity and responsibility for all partners is also a diplomatic task in many aspects. So this is both the military equipment and be ready for facing such a threat, and also we have to focus on the diplomatic efforts for that.
Hey, thanks so much for that answer. So we're going to move towards discussing Canada and Czech Republic cooperation. So our first question in this regard is that Canada has recently signed a new security and defense pact with the EU. So we were wondering, what are some areas, some key areas where Canada and the Czech Republic can scale up military cooperation, be that training, logistics, or the defense industry, and perhaps where would Prague like deeper engagement with Ottawa in this respect?
Yeah. First, let me say that we have a great business relation between the Canada and the Czech Republic. Of course, political relations are excellent, but also if you look on the business, it's, the turnover of business is 1.3 billion Canadian dollars a year, which is not bad. And based on that, there's lots of presence of the Czech companies who are working in several aspects. And for the cooperation in defense, it's one important part which what we can do together. I would mention that one initiative which we are sharing with Canada and which is led by the Czech Republic is the European Sky Shield Initiative. And this is building a system which, as we discussed, can help the security for the Europe. And Canada technologies and know-how should be shared together with the similar task Canada is planning to do here. And regarding the Czech Republic-Canada cooperation, I think it's also important that we have, as I mentioned, both operational presence in Latvia. We are a NATO multinational brigade. We are thanks for Canadian leadership of the NATO for that. So the mission of in Latvia is quite important, and we are working together. The same is a training program, Unifier, which we can do together as well. And that started in October this year. And it's a common project in which Czech armed forces are involved as well. The global security system also needs cooperation of countries which would like to go further, like-minded states. And that's why we are also happy with the signing of the Security and Defense Pact with the EU. Czech defense companies are ready for the cooperation. Now we are searching for the partners for the projects, and I'm definitely optimistic about the presence of solutions we can offer both Canadians to the Czech Republic and Czechs also to Canada on this area.
Thank you so much. Broadening out a little bit, so focusing not only on defense. Looking ahead, what areas of the Canada-Czech Republic relationship do you believe hold the most potential for growth?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Yeah, as you know, the task of the embassy, each embassy is looking for the opportunities in relations. It should be culture, it should be cooperation in science and technology, in political cooperation, and also economic cooperation. So I think that what we are trying to do is looking for the priorities we can do together. If I will stay a little bit with the defense and security, I would like to mention some investment from the Czech Republic in this area, and called Canada, for example, which is a well-known company in Kitchener, is owned by the Czechoslovak group, and very active, by the way, in the programs helping Ukraine and Ukraine defense forces. So that's very important, and that's a concrete example. And quite recently, there was an announcement about the Russia investment to the Czech Republic, making the armed vehicles called Senators, by the way. And this is a project for the several EU member states, which will be made together between with the Russia investment and Czech capacity in the Czech Republic for the whole Europe. We also have a program in aerospace, with training jets, for example, which we are offering for that. I know that passive radars are demanded by many partners, also in Canada. Bell is making helicopter services hub in Prague for the whole operation in the Europe. And also we have some research and development projects which is helping, for example, to find the key technologies for mining and to finding critical minerals for the future development for that. So the defense is definitely a new one, and cybersecurity, I already mentioned, is one important sector. The second area of cooperation we identify by the embassy is energy and upgrading the energy system, including the cooperation in a civil nuclear sector. And Westinghouse is cooperating in the Czech Republic. Also, the Czech power plants are upgrading by the investment from the Czech Republic here. And we have a company upgrading also the building and upgrading the electricity system in Canada from the Czech Republic. So this is another example of the investment. And second or third sector, which we are focusing on, is medical device cooperation and machinery manufacturing. So it's medical manufacturing. What we would like to help is upgrading the medical system in Canada, both in capacity and equipment. So we are for example, offering modular clinics and hospitals, telemedicine tools, and in a rural area, and for that. And maybe the last program which I would like to mention is also the infrastructure projects. We are deeply following what's happening in investment into the infrastructure, and we are now forming some missions from the Czech Republic, which will offer some solution which maybe possibly should be done together with the Canadian partners. And I didn't mention one important aspect which is already known in Canada, and this is Czech beer, and which is already present in Canada, and is making and helping very much to promote my country here on many occasions.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely we'll have to try some of that Czech beer. So thanks so much for your inputs and insights. We especially appreciate you sharing the insight on the Canada and Czech Republic relations. So that's the end of the moderated discussion session. So the floor is open for questions from the live audience. So for anybody watching, feel free to continue sharing your questions in the chat, and we'll address as many as possible in the time remaining. So far we've received 2 questions in the chat that are from the same individual, I believe, so we'll ask them together, which is, what would the Czech Republic do if NATO disbanded, and how would Czech citizens be affected by the ongoing support to Ukraine, including border control?
Mm-hmm. So as you know, the maybe a little bit history, because before the war, before the occupation of Ukraine by Russians, there was a lot of Ukrainian community living in the Czech Republic and working in the Czech Republic. So, and culture is a very close country. So there's no surprise that per capita, per head, per the size of the economy, Czech Republic has most Ukrainians, families and people living in the Czech Republic right now. And we are quite proud about the system that these people did find a job. The mothers find schools for the children. So they are well integrated into the society. So that's an important aspect of the support of the people for the people in the war. Is very emotional, very spontaneous, and this is very close, like Canada thinking about people coming in needs to your country. It's very similar what we feel to Ukraine people coming to the Czech Republic. So that's some kind of cooperation we have on that. Of course, we also would like the security is an important part for of the whole society. I think that this is also important part of that. But as mentioned, this is when people are finding the jobs, working in the companies, the criminal level is low. So there is a correlation between the employment and how people are living standards at every society, and the level of some security and attacks. So that's working in line for that. And I think that if NATO this balanced. I think that what we are trying to do is to be, and this is not only the Czech Republic but many European countries, to understand how important is the security, that we need to be sharing the cost and of being in NATO common shield. That this is a part to understand where should be specializing on that. So that's something which is alarming us to work together with our EU partners, regional partners, about the projects to be, as a Europeans, a good part of the NATO family, and that's important part. It's not only about accepting 5% or 3% of the budget. It's about the effective solutions we may offer for the security in Europe. And I understand the future is more and more important part of what we will do by also EU membership and EU partners in NATO.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I think that's all the live questions we've received up to this point, but our team at the NATO Association of Canada had a few more that we were really looking forward to asking. So for that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Avani.
Thank you. To start us off, how is the Czech Republic working to promote its culture, language, and heritage abroad? And what role does the Czech Republic diaspora play in this effort?
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's very essential. So we are, as you know, we are 10 million country. We are a small, medium-sized country in Europe. Yeah, and in Canada, for example, we were searching how many Czechs or Czechoslovakians are living here. And the number is around 100,000. And what we are trying to do, we are working with them on several levels. They are mainly living, by the way, in Toronto area, also in BC and Montreal. And first thing is always I'm mentioning on official meeting how important was Canada helping the people living when the Czechoslovakia was in difficult time in the war and under the communism, always finding the new home in Canada. It was very important. So one thing is keep the community to be in links with the Czech Republic. So we changed the law, allowing people to vote to the parliament in correspondence way, more easily to the voting. We are exporting some culture and focusing on the community living here. And also we are investing into the culture events and learning language. So yeah, we would like to keep the Czech language among the community living not only in Canada, but also in other places, that the Czech language will be shared with the family members and other people. And so we are trying to promote the Czech Republic. And we have good examples of the people who were very successful in the community in Canada as a former ministers or former hockey players or current hockey players. So that's a part of. Yesterday, I was meeting the pre-Christmas party with the Canadians, the Czech Canadians living in Ottawa, and I was telling them, you know, you like people from the Czech Republic living in Canada. Each of you are our ambassador. You are representing my country or our country here. So that's important to keep the ties with the people living here and keep them. And of course, they need a service from the embassy and consular affairs. So the more feeling that they are associated with my country, the better the feeling have also even living in Canada. So it's important part of sharing the culture. Quite important question. Thank you for that.
Thank you. A bit of a more personal question. What is your most proud achievement or rewarding experience as the ambassador of the Czech Republic to Canada?
I am here 2 years, so I'm thinking about the achievement. I'm always saying the best things will still ahead. Are still ahead, but I think that what we achieve is quite successful new phase of cooperation with the ex-patriots and people. Just last question, yeah. With the Czech community living in Canada, I think that this is important part that we were focusing on some places in Canada where we were not so active. So we encourage the community of the Czechs living in, let's say, in BC, for example, to be more close to the Czech culture and to do the projects together, one thing. And the second point is we built the Czech club business, I would say, or Czech Canada Business Club. And we put together all companies involved in current business, potential business, and with people from the consulting sphere, businesses, and trying to build the community which is discussing about business opportunities. And this is facilitating the contacts and what we can do together. So the proactive approach, both to people living here from the Czech Republic and also from the businesses, is something which I am happy and proud what we achieve. Not me, but the embassy. And my plan is for the next year to also to bring more Canadians to travel to the Czech Republic. And because I think the opportunities are tremendous, and I'm happy that there is a direct flight Toronto-Prague now, for example, in summer season. So I would like to bring also more Canadians to discover and find the Czech Republic as a tourist, or people traveling to the Czech Republic, and also the Czechs coming to Canada, because it's a great, marvelous country. And this month, I was very proud that in Ottawa, there is the EU Film Festival. And Czech movie, and it was in Toronto as well, by the way, the movie, Franz, which is the autobiography of Franz Kafka, was the most visited performance in this cinema among all countries. So we are very proud that this culture heritage we can share also with Canadians. So there are a few examples what I'm proud of, and still plans ahead. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much for that answer. I think that's a great way to wrap up our session. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us here today. And I just wanted to share some positive feedback from the chat. So the individual who asked our first live question has said that his wife is Czech and Opat Pivo is the best. I believe that's the beer that you were referring to. And he also says thank you, or sorry, the individual says thank you for taking the time to speak, Ambassador. So very, very positive feedback. But yeah, I'd also like to extend our thanks from the NATO Association of Canada. And to close out the session, I'll pass it over to our director, Peter.
Well, this was a very interesting conversation, and thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing your valuable insights with us today. On behalf of the NATO Association of Canada, we're very grateful for your time and thoughtful perspectives on the importance of NATO and the enduring partnership between the Czech Republic and Canada, and the shared commitment to peace and security. We appreciate everyone who joined us for this discussion and encourage you to stay connected with the NATO Association online through our social media channels and YouTube, where you can access recordings of today's conversation and learn about future events. Thank you again to our audience and to His Excellency for the engaging and very informative dialogue. We look forward to welcoming you to the next session. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, NATO Association of Canada, for inviting me for this great diplomatic speaker series. For all questions, and if anybody would like to continue, our embassy is open for the discussing with your community the topics they are interested in. And thank you very much for the pleasant meeting with you all.
Absolutely. We will consider the offer, definitely.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.